Hi everyone, it's Lisa from I Dream in Soap. Welcome to my channel and thanks for dropping by. Now this soap is part of an international collaboration of soap makers where we're all making a soap inspired by weather. In addition to using the theme of weather, we need to try and include one sort of technique or thing that we've never done before. Now, for my inspiration, I must admit my favourite type of weather is something just like a nice sunny spring day. But I found I couldn't really think of many sort of things to make the sort of soap that I wanted to make with that. So I asked Mr. I Dream in Soap and said, what do you think about weather? And he said, why don't you do a tornado? I said to him, well, that sounds great. How do I do a tornado? And he just said to me, well, you just do this. Whoosh! So there we go. So, armed with my expert advice from Mr. I Dream in Soap, we've launched into our tornado making soap and we can go and see how it's done. Once you've finished this video, why not click on the hashtag in the link in the description below, and that will take you to all of the other videos in this collaboration. Come on, let's go and make some soap. For my tornado soap, I wanted to do the classic scene that you see in any tornado movie. You know, the one where somebody's driving along and there's trees and sheds and always the obligatory cow flying through the air. So I'm going to start off by making some embeds. I want to get quite a few things into this soap, including the tornado itself, so I need to make my embeds really small. Therefore, I'm going to extrude everything apart from the shed. So I'm going to start off making a fence that I want the base of the tornado to be busting its way through. So I've just taken a plain straight extruder disc that you'd get in any kit and extruded some bits of brown soap dough. To make the tree, I've made my own extruder discs for a top and a bottom of the tree. And then onto my favourite embed, the little tiny weeny cow. Now I wanted my cow to be a Frisian, that's the black cow with the white patches. So I've made one extruder to print the main body of the cow and then a separate one to print a patch to go in on its back. And I've made them so that the patch fits perfectly inside the back of the cow. And then all I'm just going to do is spread a little distilled water where the two are going to join and push them together, and then I should have my Frisian cow. If you want to make cows and trees or even a tornado for your soaps, then the tools I've made for this soap will be available in the shop, and I'll put a link in the description below. And then lastly, I just cut a square block and a triangular block of brown soap dough and turned it into a little shed. I let all of the embed set up for just a few hours and then moved on to the main body of the soap. So first of all, I want to make a grass layer. So I'm using some emerald green from the soapery and I'm just making up a very small individual batch of soap. So a little bit of lye and a little bit of oils, obviously weighed out in the correct amounts. It's just going to be a single colour, so I'm adding my colourant straight to my oil. And then blending that together. I can afford this to go to a reasonably thick trace. I'm not too worried about sticking to emulsion or anything. For my fragrance oil, I'm using Loving Spell from Nature's Garden. Now, this may not seem the most natural choice here, but I chose it because it's a fragrance oil that I've got attached to an assessment that actually gave me the range of colours by mixing together and things that I needed to make this soap and still be able to sell it. And anyway, it's a really nice fragrance and I think a lot of people like it. So once I've blended my fragrance in, I'll then just simply pour it into the mould. I'll then let that set up a little bit and I'll give the top a bit of texture so that it looks like some grass. And once that's set quite firm, I'm going to put in the lower panels of my fence, the ones that are still touching the grass. Now I'm trying to be really careful here because I do want these to go into the grass and I want them fairly close together, but I do need to make sure that I can leave enough of a gap so that when I pour the soap batter in, I don't end up with any air bubbles. And then onto the blue for my sky. Now I'm using shimmer blue from Mica Mama. I'm also going to be using some titanium dioxide so that the sky isn't too dark a colour. Now I am going to be pouring my sky in separate pours because I want my embeds to be at different levels in the soap, but obviously I want my sky to be all the same colour. So I'm taking my blue and I'm mixing it with all of the oils that I'll use for the sky first of all before I split bits out. I don't want to have completely separate layers of blue for my sky, so I am going to mix my entire load of soap batter up by adding my lye solution into my oils. But at this stage I'm just going to blend it really lightly. Now because my fragrance oil doesn't speed up my trace at all, I'm just going to mix it in with the total amount of soap at this stage. If you had one that accelerated, I would be mixing it in just before I'm about to pour each individual bit of blue. And whilst my soap batter is still really fluid, that's when I'm going to take it and pour that first little bit of blue in, because then I can be sure that I'm going to get it in between all of those fence panels. I've then separated out that remaining blue batter and I've just got a little bit here that I'm going to give a further blend, whilst the rest of it is sitting off to the side, staying nice and fluid. So now we've got a bit of sky poured in, we can start to add in those fence panels that have been ripped up into the air. And I'm making sure that as I place them I'm being really careful because I know I've got to bring my tornado through the middle there, so I don't want to end up bumping into them as I go and scrape that through. And then I'm just going to work my way up, adding a little bit more blue, then another fence panel, then a little bit more blue until I've got them all in where I want them. Now as that batter's thickening up, that's absolutely fine because it's given me some nice support for those fence panels. But I am being really careful that I'm making sure that I push the batter into all the little gaps so I don't get any air pockets. Now I have left this quite messy, and that's deliberate because as I now go in and pour this more fluid batter, it can fall into all of those cracks. And I'm also going to give it a little mix in just to make sure, because I do find that sometimes when you pour layers separately, even if they're mixed from the same oils and micas, you can still get a little bit of a line. So I'm just sort of trying to blend them together a bit here, just to make sure I don't have any unseemly joins. Now the fun bit, time to bring all those tornado swept elements into the soap. So I'm starting off with the shed here, and I'm going to pop that in upside down. And you might notice that my batter at the top here is still really fluid, and I've done that deliberately because when you've got something that's an embed with a slightly intricate shape on it, you want a nice fluid batter to push them into so it flows into any gaps. Now my shed's not too bad, but when we start looking at putting in things like the cow, that is going to be important. And then just finishing off with the rest of that blue batter. I'm just going to make sure that there are no gaps and then just shape it slightly, getting ready to scrape out that tornado. So here we are, tornado time. So I've made a scraper to give me the shape of the tornado, and I'm just going to scrape through like any sort of sculpted layer technique. And hopefully I've put all the embeds in the right places so they're not going to be destroyed as I go through with my tornado. I am scraping out quite a lot of the blue here to get the right shape, but that's fine because anytime this happens for me, I then just seal it up nicely and turn it into soap dough. And then for my last embed, the tree, I want that so it's sort of part way in the actual tornado itself and part sticking out. So I'm just going to push some of that into the blue and leave the rest popping out so that it ends up inside the tornado. So now let's fill that tornado in, or do the whoosh like we were told to do. I've mixed up my remaining soap batter and added my fragrance oil. I'm sure you probably didn't need to see that again. So now I'm just going to weigh out the whole amount, and I want to have most of it. So I'm going to have 3/4 of it that I'm going to keep white, and then I'm going to add some fairly darkish grey to the other quarter. To get my grey, I'm just going to use some activated charcoal, but not enough of it to turn it black. I'm going to use an in-the-pot swirl for my tornado whoosh, but not the type where you just pop the entire amount of colour into a jug. I'm just going to gradually just lay little lines of the grey on top of the white, so I can just make sure I can really control the colours as they're going through. And then to get the sort of horizontal sort of wind stripes that you get in your tornado, I'm going to pour it in by making lots and lots and lots of little circles as I pour everything out of the jug. So effectively trying to sort of create instant little tiny mini layers. And I'll just carry on with that until I've filled my tornado up. And then to finish off the top, I've got some really cute little embeds. These are just literally the same extrusions that I did through the middle of the soap. I've just cut them into very thin, probably sort of like 2mm slices. And I'm just going to plop them randomly on the top of the soap. So then, as normal, I'll C-pop the soap to make sure it goes through gel phase. So into an oven that's preheated to 170 degrees F, 75 degrees C. Turn the oven off as soon as the soap goes in there, and I just leave it overnight. So here we are with our soap ready to cut the next day. And oh, I really like that. I love the way the fence is like being beaten up by the tornado and the cow, and I love the shed, and I do like it. I hope you do too. I think it's quite a fun soap, and I'm actually really pleased with the way that that tornado whoosh has given us that nice effect of the wind. Just before I leave you with some final pictures, thank you so much for watching my video. And if you do have some time, why not go and have a look at the other weather videos that we've got from the other makers in the collaboration. I'm sure so many of them will appreciate if you pop over and have a look at their videos. There's a handy hashtag in my description below, so you can just click on that and it will take you to all those other videos. So I'll just finish off with some final pictures of the soap. I hope you've enjoyed this video and you like the soap. If you have, it would be great if you left me a thumbs up. If you've got any questions or comments, then please leave them in the comment section below. And if you'd like to see what I'm making in the future, why not subscribe to my channel? Thanks for watching everyone. Happy soaping!